We're on to executive session. No action was taken. However, at this time, Warren County Personnel Committee would entertain a motion to ratify contracts with the faculty union and the support union. Seconded by Supervisor Bramer. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Washington County Committee. Motion to do the same.
We're good.
Okay.
Oh, that was up.
I'm sorry, did you guys leave your hearing aids out in the hallway?
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Campbell, second by Supervisor Hanke. Any further dialogue? All in favor, signal saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
We had one more person here. Warren County Finance Committee motion to approve contracts as presented. Supervisor Driscoll, Supervisor Thomas on second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, and if you would again entertain Warren County for a moment, have a proposed resolution to authorize the purchase of real property located at 12th Avenue Road, Dewberry, New York, to be acquired in the name of the county of Warren and Washington, in their capacities as trustees of the Adirondacks Community College, DBA Suny Adirondacks, for the sum of $289,900 plus reasonable closing costs. Moved by Supervisor Connell. Second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Supervisor Bramer.
Chairman.
Discussion.
Thank you. So I did have questions about the title documents, which we talked about briefly, and I appreciate that our attorney will receive them and look at them. Sounds like there aren't any title issues, so that's positive. Another question that I had, and we did get some information about the justification for the need for the additional space, and I understand that the initial purchase price is not going to have any financial implications to the county. Two questions I have are, has the state authorized the purchase? Because I understand they are paying for half. Is that already gone through, or is that just automatic because it's a capital expenditure? And secondly, can you give me an idea of the costs, the carrying costs, if any, that will be added to the college's budget as we go forward once we take ownership of this piece of property? Okay. And I know Anne Marie wasn't here at our last committee meeting to entertain those questions.
No, but Eric did it and let me know what the discussion was. So first answer is the state will not approve a 50% reimbursement without support from both counties. So this is the appropriate step in that process. There will be an automatic approval after that. Or been in discussions with our dad representative about this purchase, who also was supportive and advised to us that it makes sense to purchase this property, both given its location and condition and the need that we currently have. As far as carrying costs go, they would be very minimal and small. It's a very small piece of property, excellent condition. It was gutted and renovated very recently. And so it would be utilities for the building, which it's small, it's building minimal. I will say that on the staff that we are planning on putting in that building are currently in non-ADA compliant space, which was recently identified in civil rights compliance review of the colleges. And so we will have to find alternative space for them regardless, which would result in a renovation that possibly would be higher than the purchase price of this property.
Is this already ADA compliant?
Absolutely. Fully ADA compliant with renovation. Any other questions?
nothing else, I'll call the question on the motion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Okay, are we ready? Thank you. I know this is a long meeting, but a lot of important information, and so I'll try to be brief in my college update. Classes began on Wednesday of this week, and I can tell you the energy feels really great to have all of our students back, our faculty and staff, and so far so good. In terms of enrollment, we expect to meet our budgeted enrollment. We've had a slight increase in our full-time students, which is a really good trend to see considering the trends we've been seeing over the last couple of years. We had an increase of our new students from Warren County and an increase in our returning students from Washington County. And we're expecting 350 in housing this fall, which we were at 225 last year. So making really significant progress in terms of returning to what we call pre-pandemic levels. Growth areas continue to be, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What's the maximum capacity for housing?
I'm sorry, 408. Yep. Yeah, so we had a plan to, incrementally increase. We were hoping to get to 300 this year. So to be at 350 is a really good positive step forward. We've had growth in our early college program. We continue to add more high schools to those that are participating in our college in the high school program, as well as in our early college career academies that we've talked to you about before. We will have another cohort starting in our prison education program at Washington Correctional Facility. And thanks to a much more significant capacity in our athletic department, we've been doing a really great job of recruiting new student athletes, particularly from all of our areas. And I have to say, building the turf field has certainly helped us in being able to be much more attractive to come here to play a competitive sport. Again, just a couple of highlights, like I said, with early college. We have 115 juniors in our early college program, which is really a result of what started as P-Tech, which is the Pathways to Technology program that starts students in 9th grade year. And we're starting to see that bubble of students come through. So now they'll start taking classes on campus, and we've had great success. We're at about 83–84% retaining the students who complete early college in their senior year in high school and then ultimately enroll at the college. That's a really good retention number and what we've been hoping for all along. So we're really starting to see some good momentum in the early college program. We actually awarded 17 students about 2 weeks ago in the correctional facility with a certificate in business entrepreneurship and marketing. I unfortunately wasn't able to attend the ceremony, but any one of the college staff that was there came back kind of blown away with how grateful the students were, some incredibly inspiring speeches from some of the folks that completed. They will continue on in their second year to earn a degree next year. And we have 20 new students that will start the cohort in that program in Washington Correctional Facility. And as I said, we've had an increase in new courses in some of our high schools, Warren, Washington, and Saratoga County. So some good highlights and some good positive momentum in enrollment. A couple new things that are on the books for this fall. In consultation with Global Foundries, we've developed an electrical maintenance technician boot camp, as it's being called. It's a 10-week short-term program to prepare people to be eligible for entry-level technician positions, whether at Global Foundries or any of our manufacturing areas. So we're really excited to be able to continue to respond, continue to respond to the workforce needs in our area. We also, in a partnership with the Saratoga City School District, as you know, we have a very robust continuing education program here at the college. We now are assuming the entire catalog of courses that have been a long time part of the Saratoga City School District. We're now taking over the administration of those programs, which leverages our site in Saratoga County, as well as utilizing spaces. So we're actually adding 30 new courses to our continuing education catalog that now spans both Saratoga, Warren, and Washington County. So we're excited about that. We also will be starting this spring a new cohort of an LPN to RN program that will help bring more LPNs into the registered nurse status, which will of course continue to try to address the shortages in healthcare. We also received, in collaboration with Columbia Green, Fulton Montgomery, and Schenectady Community College, funds about about $230,000 to develop a curriculum to support what we expect to be, of course, an emerging cannabis industry, as well as hemp, which we know really supports some of the businesses that have already started in Warren and Washington County. And so we now have funds to help develop curriculum in response to that industry. As regulations continue to be developed at the state level, we'll be responding accordingly, and really throughout the capital region. We also received some grant funds to try to continue to increase enrollment in our substance abuse services program, which of course we all know, unfortunately, we still have a very large substance abuse challenge in this region and around the country. And so with some new funds, we're going to be able to put more of our courses in that program online to help more working folks be able to start working towards a credential, and hoping to be able to increase enrollment and therefore produce more certified workers in that area. As part of the stimulus funds that we received, we've invested $250,000 in health and wellness initiatives, particularly to address, again, the incredible amount of mental health challenges that our community is facing, our students are facing, our employees are facing, that we're all aware of. And for the first time in the college's history, we will have a nurse on campus on a regular basis. We've partnered with Hudson Headwaters to have their mobile unit here on a periodic basis. We've invested in more of our services to support mental health counseling, adding to the already licensed mental health counselors that we have. So really making a very big investment in our students and helping them, many that have still been challenged out of a COVID environment that we've all been living through. And we're really excited to be able to increase our services in mental health and wellness. And thanks to Warren County, now we will be administering the peer-to-peer veterans program that services both Warren and Washington County. They're just in the final stages of hiring a coordinator to really help get this off the ground. So we're really looking forward to being part of that important initiative and adding to what we already do to support veterans in the area. So with that, that's just my brief update on what's happening at the college. This afternoon, we have a welcome back event, calling it our family reunion. So we're all wearing our Adirondacks swag and getting really excited about the year ahead of us. So any questions I can answer for you?
Just a quick one. The LP and the RN, how length the time and how much money does that cost? Because it sounds like a significant program.
It is. So it will start in spring of 23. It's basically 3 semesters because typically in LPN, if they generally will come in with at least a first semester credit for their program in LPN. So it would be the fall of 24. We received $250,000, I want to say, to help support equipping a practice lab at Saratoga. What's unique about this program, and it's actually a really effective and efficient way to utilize our current full-time faculty. The courses that we offer here will then be simulcast to the Saratoga Center so that the students will be sitting in that classroom, and that then eliminates the need to actually add another full-time faculty member, which is what makes increasing a nursing program so expensive. And so we'll be able to utilize that technology between the 2 campuses. So most of the cost is really in equipping a practice lab at Saratoga and some of the clinical instruction. But at least the grant funds will cover that first cohort. And it's really a pilot for us to see, is this something we should continue and making sure there's enough of a population.
You currently have 167 high school students enrolled. Do you track how many of those go on to continue their education with you after high school?
Yep. So that was that 83%-ish retention rate that I was talking about. So the 167 are in our early college program. And yeah, we're now, and we were at maybe 60% a couple of years ago. So we feel like we're finally getting the right group of students that really fit the vision of the program. All right, I'll turn it over to Emery. Thank you.
I'm covering quite a bit today, and I'm going to try to do it fairly quickly because we've already been here for about an hour. So if you don't mind, I'm going to stay kind of back here behind the podium. But one of the items that we had on the agenda, just to cover with you briefly, because I do feel it is important, and it relates to some other slides and requests that we're about to show you, but the allocation of Suny Adirondacks Higher Education Emergency Relief Funds. Those are the COVID-related funds that we've received from the federal government. Total funds allocated to the college, $17.3 million. 7.2 of that was for and went directly to Suny Adirondacks students to help them with any COVID-related expenses that they may have incurred. The majority of those students live in your sponsor areas, Warren and Washington County, along with Saratoga. In addition, the institution received $10.1 million to help defray the costs associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. And associated with that are replacing any outdated deferred maintenance, air quality items on campus. So what you're going to see in the next few slides are several capital projects that have rooftop units that have exceeded their useful life. They're 20 to 30 years old. We are using HERF funds to replace those along with the roofs that they sit on. And by doing that, the state of New York will match those capital dollars for another $3.2 million, resulting in $20.5 million coming into the college, Warren and Washington County, as a result of us being located here from the federal government and the state of New York to assist with the COVID-19 pandemic. Just a reminder for you, those uses for us are determined by the Department of Education as well as the state of New York and SUNY System Administration. Our uses are far more strict than those that you have at the county. It is very, very prescribed down to the percentage of how we can use the funds that were allocated to us and what they can be used for. Our auditors do have to review and approve all of our uses of those funds, and they have done so to date and will do so through the next fiscal year as we fully expend those resources. This is just a distribution graph for you if you're interested. I particularly like this about where those funds went to. The largest piece of the pie, evidence-based practices to monitor and prevent the spread of COVID-19. Some lost revenue. SUNY Adirondack did lose revenue during the COVID-19 pandemic. Those lost revenue dollars are used to continue to pay our payroll and the other expenses that we have, the majority of which is payroll and benefits. Distance learning technology, 16%, mental health and wellness, COVID testing and monitoring. And we did receive through the Higher Education Emergency Relief Funds coverage for the rent of our Saratoga building while it was shut down during the year that we were completely online. That was all I had about the HERF funds. Are there any questions before I move on? The next presentation is going to take about 10 minutes. I'm going to go through it very, very quickly because it's important for you to know, but there's also a lot of information there. So I'll take questions at the end unless there's anything you really want to stop and cover. The 2022 Facilities Master Plan work began pre-COVID. It's been in the works for a long time. We took a brief pause when we returned from being out due to COVID to kind of just take a moment, reassess the work that we had done, what the campus would look like moving forward. There were a lot of uncertainties. And then we worked with the college community throughout 2021-22 to finalize the facilities master plan. For those of you that are new and haven't heard me present on this 10 times already, having a facilities master plan that is current is a requirement by New York State to obtain that 50% reimbursement on capital projects. So we are required to have one of these plans. It is intended to be all-encompassing, including things from deferred maintenance that you know you have to fix to the pie in the sky project, that if a grant money comes from somewhere and it fits the academic need of the institution that you would do, but maybe you don't have money on hand for right now, and that's okay. So you're going to see everything from deferred maintenance, we must do this, to this would be great if we ever identified a funding resource for it. Just like planning departments at your local towns, you're required to put together an all-encompassing plan for your institution. It has been endorsed by both the college community and our board of trustees. It does not require formal action from you. And it supports the college's strategic plan, our academic master plan, our strategic enrollment management plan, and it influences certainly our long-term financial plan. We've made some great progress over the last master plan that we had. We were due for a new one, and this is the result of that. I'm going to open a different presentation for you, so give me 1 second, please. So this master plan did identify 6 goals: support student learning, enhance student life, increase the utilization of our space, highlight athletics and recreation on the south end of campus, improving it, and then some strategic relocations of some of our operations and services. We did identify a proposed site plan, which resulted in 4 very distinct and natural campus zones. I'll start with the south end and move north: athletics and recreation. Just north of that, student life, with our residence hall and our student center, the academic core and our STEAM vision, followed to the north by community use, which includes the college gardens that we have now, potentially relocating our maintenance facility and childcare, which you'll see in future slides. We do have an implementation plan that we've identified. It is a 10-year plan. It takes into account any enabling projects. You can't do this project until you've done this project. Spreads it out over a 10-year period. It was costed out by professional costing consultants. It totals approximately $63 million, with one long-range wish project that would bring it to about $100 million. Years 1 through 5, I'm going to go through quickly. Some of these things have changed already, and I'll tell you about that when we get there. And that's normal. The first renovation is very small. I'm going to request it in the capital project request that you're about to review. It's to finish our Scoville Learning Center renovation. As part of a facilities master plan, our consultants do a very extensive space utilization study. And one of the things that they identified was that our accessibility services office needs more space. The number of students it serves has increased over time. It no longer has an adequate footprint to serve the student population that it has. And that is the majority of the renovation that would take place in this building. Increases some tutoring space for them and then expands their testing center. We've already moved the foundation to some space on the 3rd floor, so that part is already done and really has no cost associated with it. Our boardroom requires some very small updates, and we plan to relocate our facilities office to the lower level adjacent to IT because they share very similar need for information about the college's infrastructure. Again, that really won't have a cost associated with it. The cost associated with this project is really to expand accessibility services. Originally, when we began this plan, we discussed, in addition to this building, Bryan Hall, what was meant to be our regional higher education center to support student learning. It was originally proposed as a $2.3 million renovation to create what we called the LINC, the Learning Innovation Center, to enable more studios that host that simulcasting function that Dr. Duffy just talked about. They're very, very interactive, state-of-the-art technology that allows a faculty member to interact with students live in different locations. And originally we were going to build an addition to host those studios. Since that time, something has come up. An educational institution that rented some space in this building decided they no longer needed it, and we retrofitted that space to accommodate these various studios. So we're not entirely sure that the need for more will present itself in the way that it has in this plan, but the plan is here. Update some general classrooms. I mentioned that space utilization study. One of the things that came out of there was the need for the college to have a couple of larger classrooms than it does right now. And so this project is in one of our buildings. It would identify several smaller classrooms that could be renovated into larger classrooms that more students can sit in, and allows us to have a fewer number of sections for the same course. The gymnasium renovation, in addition, is likely the one that you're going to hear from About Us at some point in the future, you will notice that it hits all 6 goals of the facilities master plan. It is long overdue. That building has not been renovated at all since it was originally constructed. Because of that, the cost of a renovation to that building is approximately $17 million and would include a very small addition for our athletic academic offices, as well as things students need today, like a weight room and a training room, and would include a renovation of all spaces inside that building. It is currently not air conditioned, just to give you an example of how old it is. We've done the study, we've done the work, we do it every few years to say, can we air condition this building? And the answer repeatedly is, it's a wasted investment until you renovate the entire facility. So it's that old that the building is not air controlled for temperature. A renovation of the humanities building would complete the STEAM vision that we originally started with Adirondack Hall. It's about a $6.5 million project. It is one that we feel we would need grant support to complete, but we also feel that it is a project that is attractive for the types of grants that are available right now. It would essentially take the theater that the college has, which is underutilized, and transform it into space containing new large Cisco labs, engineering and technology labs, and computer science labs. And if you've been in our theater, you know that it is a space on campus, the only space on campus. Should we admit that person? Yes, just checking. The only space on campus that has very, very tall ceilings that would allow for certain types of engineering and technology equipment that we wouldn't be able to accommodate in other places on our campus. Dear Love Hall renovation and addition. Dear Love, after the gymnasium, is probably the other building on campus in need of the most attention. The renovation of that building, again, would be a complete gut renovation since it has not been renovated at all since it was constructed. The cost of that is about $13.5 million. It does include, since we would be taking the college's theater offline and removing much of the space that we have for the performing arts, creating some performing arts space on the ground floor of Dear Love, as well as updating all of the other faculty offices, lecture halls, classrooms, and art studios that exist in that space now. Years 6 through 10 include a renovation of Washington Hall. We're doing some of this right now, actually. So this would be, it says it's a $900,000 renovation. I think it's going to be slightly less than that. It really does involve taking some media art space that is currently unused because it was built to be a dark room. That's how old it is. So it is currently unusable. We use it for storage space and really renovating it to create some more media arts classroom space, which is mostly computers. Our new maintenance facility, the current maintenance facility is old, it is deteriorating, it is adjacent to our childcare center and is directly in front of the new turf field. So as you pull up to the beautiful new turf field, you're going to walk right past the very, very old maintenance facility that we have there. We've had a long-term goal of relocating that facility to the north end of campus to an entrance that is much less busy. Right now, any deliveries coming to the maintenance facility have to come through what we consider to be a pedestrian campus. So they have to drive through our entire pedestrian campus to get to that facility. Some student center renovations and additions that, from my perspective, would likely only take place if enrollment increased to the point that it was needed. And some of these I'm going to try to do right now. That's this little $300,000 one. But what we're looking to do is expand the dining area, add outdoor seating, and then upstairs, this is kind of blocking you, I apologize. Add some student space and some study rooms. These are some of the items we heard very, very loudly from students. They want more study space outside of the library, more space to work together with one another. And I think that's a reflection of how academics has changed. There's a lot of group work now. This is just another picture of the outdoor seating area. We included a new agricultural business building to support our ag business program. This is what we previously talked about in the location of adjacent to what we call the Little Red House, which our ag department loves. But expanding really, whoops, excuse me, there's only one slide here, expanding what they need and adding sort of an outdoor classroom, a space to sell the produce that they grow, things like that. New childcare center. For a long time, the college's childcare has been at capacity. It has been at capacity every year in my tenure here, except for the COVID years. It is, as I mentioned, located, it's tucked away behind the gymnasium, adjacent to our maintenance facility, and now will be right in front of where our turf field is. We would like to expand the size of that childcare center, relocate it to that community use center of campus, the north end of campus. However, it's a $6.5 million project. Childcare centers are extremely expensive to construct, they're expensive to maintain, and so this is obviously a project that we would need some sort of third-party support to materialize. Green space improvements are minor, they're about $500,000. It's mostly going to be walkways, creating some additional student space in what we call a wide lawn on the west end of campus, and that's out there in pretty close to year 10. The facilities maintenance projects are our deferred maintenance projects. I'm particularly proud of this slide. In my tenure here, Suny Adirondack has had approximately 12 years worth of deferred maintenance at any one point in time. This is a significant reduction that was identified, really due to the improvements that were made over the last facilities master plan. The major one of which, Adirondack Hall, was only possible because of your support. So thank you for that. This list, generally we address this with the capital project dollars that we receive from other counties that send students to Suny Adirondack. They each pay a chargeback that is solely can be used for capital projects, and we set that aside to address our deferred maintenance items every year. The long-range plan includes one very nice project, should we ever be able to have it materialize, and that would be a new field house for Suny Adirondack. Given that we have put it out past year 10 in this plan, this cost includes the cost for doing the work then and not now. That is the case for all the costs that you've seen here. They've been projected out to, escalated out to the period in which we plan to do the work. This one was 2030. Whoops. It would be a very medium-sized field house. It would have an open lawn area, drop-off zone, all those things that you would think a field house should have. And this is just a little depiction of what it would be within the synthetic turf field that we're currently constructing outside. That is what I was going to present for the facilities. Oh, one more slide. Emphasis on renovation. So the last facilities master plan, the emphasis really was on creating new space that the college needed. Very specifically Adirondack Hall, that end stem project that we had talked about for years. The emphasis on this plan really is on renovation with very little new space added to the campus footprint. Are there any questions about the college's master plan? I just want to stress again that it includes things from projects that we know we have to do to many, many wish projects. So there's a wide range included there. Yes.
Thank you. This isn't exactly about the master plan, but does it take into account projections for enrollment and or the number of students who actually be on campus? Considering that it seems like what you're saying is more people will not actually come to campus for some part of their learning.
So it does. Part of that space utilization study does that. Much of the work that JMZ uses, and they do this across the nation, is related to our enrollment management plan and what we feel our future enrollment is going to be, both in person and through those other different modalities.
I think that's why you see the shift away from new construction, building new buildings or adding to buildings versus renovation.
And we wish list aside, Have you identified any additional capital money from the sponsors aside from the non-sponsored kind of capital contributions that you receive each semester?
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
Are you going to be looking to the counties for capital money, wish list aside, in addition to what you get every year from the non-sponsored counties?
I think it is fair for us to say that we feel that we really do need to address the gymnasium in the near future.
So we are trying to multi-year plan now, so if there's going to be some ask of the counties, it'd be nice to know.
If there was one project in here for you to focus on and plan for, I would select the
Gym
gym.
renovation.
And we can certainly have some planning meetings about that as well, and what that might look like. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to move along because we do have a very large agenda. The next item on your agenda, which does require action from each of you, is our 2023-24 capital project request. Just for your information and a reminder, we have not submitted a capital project to the state of New York for a few years. And that was because first they stopped funding them, but also because we were kind of busy. And the project that we had started pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, the synthetic turf field, had been put on hold again because Suny had stopped funding capital projects during that period of time and then started up again. So this is almost a 3-year request here, and it's a large request for us. However, it's on par with the capital project dollars, and you will see that. Al's probably taking note. He's very good at that. The first item in here is a renovation of Washington Hall. We didn't talk about this a lot here, but we did at our Board of Trustees meeting. We are renovating a section of Washington Hall to create a center for student health and wellness that will house our mental health counselors, the campus nurse, and other resources our students use and need, including our on-campus food pantry. The HERF funds are eligible for that, and then the state would match that project. It's on this list not because we require money from you, but to get the 50% reimbursement from the state, I need you to approve the project. That's the same for several other of these. And included in that Washington Hall renovation is a replacement of all the rooftop units on Washington Hall, which are well past end of life. Just a couple of months ago, one exploded into my office space and there were large garbage cans collecting water all over. So it would be nice to address that deferred maintenance as well. That is the same with the Student Center and the Warren Hall roof. Those are the other 2 rooftop units well past their end of life. And this includes a replacement of those units and the roofs that they sit on top of. Student Center outdoor patio and dining, you saw briefly during my facilities master plan presentation. It is HERF fund eligible. I will tell you that part of the spread that we did see on campus, which was incredibly small, was when people removed their masks to share a meal with one another. And so giving them some space to eat outdoors is something we've never had on this campus, but that our students are asking for. And that bit of information that we have is what correlates this to using higher education emergency relief funds. In addition, we've already spent well over $900,000 on technology to improve distance learning. By including that spend here, I get to double it with the state. So we've already spent it. That project's already done. We've already paid those expenses with HERF funds. But by including it here, I will get the 50% match from the state for us to continue to make those investments. I say I, but I really mean the college. The synthetic turf field, as many of you know, we've discussed previously. The final bids, when we rebid it 2 years later, were higher than the original bids. 2 years had gone by. So we asked the Suny Adirondack Foundation to cover the difference, and they agreed. And so we're matching that as well with state funds. We did discuss the Scoville renovation in the facilities master plan presentation that I just did. It was a year 1 project, so I have included it. It is a project that we would not start until next summer, not even the coming summer, the next summer. So, but it takes approximately a year to get a project set up with the state of New York. So that is one of the future projects that we're asking for support for now, so that when a year from now, we can actually do it and have a chargeback number for it. Student center upgrades. This is a small refurbishment of the student center to take some space that again is currently not used. They're old unused bathrooms and some other areas that we're using as storage and renovate them for space that will better serve the needs of our students in their main building for student activities on campus. The purchase of 12 Haviland Road is included. We've discussed that in detail. Again, it's included here so that we get this 50% state match. ADA compliance, I mentioned previously that the college just completed a civil rights compliance review. Several items were identified as needing remediation. It is state matchable, so I've included a small amount of money to complete those improvements. And then the last air handler chiller on campus that will need replacement is Scoville. It's a small amount of money, so we've included that as well. So $3.2 million of this request will be funded with higher education emergency relief funds, $800,000 from the Suny Adirondack Foundation, and then 3 years worth of our local share capital chargebacks. We are asking for no money from our sponsor county for these $10 million worth of projects. Are there any questions? Yes.
Can that all be accomplished in the 23-24 window?
It doesn't need to be.
Okay.
So for example, the Scoville renovation, for those of you that are new in the room, the process is it goes to you for approval. It gets submitted to the state and into their budget in April, and it's generally another 3 months before we get a capital project number to be able to submit expenses against. So for example, the Scoville renovation project is one that we wouldn't plan on starting until the summer of next year, the following year anyway.
So this is going to go through 26 or 7 before this is all done?
Probably not. The rooftop units are the majority of what you see here. The Washington Hall renovation is already underway. The rooftop units will all be one project that gets designed and accomplished probably by the end of next summer, and that's a significant amount. The synthetic turf field is going to be done probably in December of this year. So there's not really a lot on this list to do outside of those, other than the Scoville renovation and the small student center upgrades and outdoor dining. Any other questions? This does require action from these groups. Do you want to do that now?
We have a motion from the personnel committee. Chairman Gary. All in favor? And where to look at this left, and I don't know, finance still has a form. Do we have a motion from the finance committee to Supervisor Driscoll, seconded by Chairman Gary. Any questions? Call question, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No second?
How you didn't do anything. Motion by Supervisor Hanky, second by Supervisor Campbell. Any further dialogue? Questions? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries.
Good listening.
How'd I do that? So the last item on our list may take a bit of discussion. I apologize for the length of this meeting. It is one that we have been talking about since 2017 when it was originally proposed and discussed at a joint county meeting then. I did provide an in-person document for you that you could pick up at the back table. If you missed it, you can grab one on the way out. It was also emailed out to each county. And that is a sponsor share proposal request. As we usually do, we include some information about some of our wonderful alumni for you so that you can see the impact that this college has on your constituents in each of your counties. That information is available for you to review. Includes Amy Ryan from Glens Falls. She started out at Suny Adirondack, went on to the University of Albany, and then got her MBA from Harvard. Lisa Mitzen, many of us have dined at some of these places. Hometown of Hudson Falls, New York, 1989 graduate of Suny Adirondack, went on to Utica, retired mortgage lender and co-owner of Handsome Cock Farm, Hattie's Restaurant and Chicken Shack, a personal favorite of mine, The Bread Basket, and co-founder of A Business for Good. And then one of our own dear faculty members, Nick Crosby, IT instructor from Whitehall, New York, started out at Suny Adirondack in 2010, went on to Burlington College, and then returned to Suny Adirondack in 2015. Currently works here as an instructor of IT networking. Since 1961, the college has served the needs of both sponsor communities because you saw the need to have us, and you jointly together determined that you would become sponsors of a community college. Since that time, we have generated more in tax revenue than we appropriate. We impact the local area economy in a number of ways. In 2017, we did an economic impact study. For the year that study covered, we generated $140.3 million in income that was added to the region, supported 2,216 jobs. The rate of return to our students is 16%, far better than they would get for their investment in the stock market. And the rate of return to taxpayers is 4%. We generate approximately 0.7% of the region's GRP. In addition, we provide students with the knowledge, the skills, and the abilities they need to be productive citizens in your counties, and to further add to the overall output of the region, making this such a wonderful place to live. We buy the majority of our goods here in local Warren and Washington County, and the majority of our employees, which represent 80% of our budget, live in your sponsor counties as well. The sponsor share, which we have covered over the last several years, for Warren County represents just 6.6% of our total operating revenues, Washington County 4.8%. Together, that number is just over 11% of the college's total operating revenues. In the beginning, that number was intended to be closer to 30%. That was supposed to be the share. It's not exactly that, but that's what everybody says, 30, 30, 30. At this point, students are bearing 36.6% of the burden of the college's operating revenues and costs. Saratoga County through chargebacks represents the largest portion of local sponsors, or not local sponsors, but local residents at 7.6% through chargebacks. Our chargebacks to other counties are directly correlate to the dollars in which you provide to support your community college. The calculation that calculates the chargeback rate is very specifically calculated in that way. So every dollar that you invest in your community college impacts the amount that we are able to charge every other county that sends a student to Suny Adirondack. You can see we receive more money from Saratoga County than we do from either Warren or Washington. The college has done an exemplary job in generating grant revenue over the last several years, which now represents 7.3% of our budget. And state and other, which at this point represents federal grants mostly, is just about 35%. What I've said to you before and what I'm trying to say to you again is that the current sponsor share falls below what it was originally intended. It hasn't kept pace with things like inflation, normal increases to salary and benefits, and it even falls below your peer average, which is close to 15.1%. You very clearly see the correlation to the amount that students pay of that total operating revenue. You can see it right here in these two bar graphs. It has looked this way through my entire tenure at Suny Adirondack. And what we're trying to show is that over a period of time, we will require tuition increases 5% or greater to continue to support the college if we can't get the sponsor level of support a little higher. The number that Eric and I have used since 2017 in all of our long-term financial plans is to try to get that local sponsor share to match the average of the peers, not the 30% that was originally intended, but the 15.1%. And what that really requires, it would be an additional $1.35 million. What we're asking for, because it's a nice round number, is to get the local sponsor share to 5 million. It would still slightly be below the average of your peers, but it's a nice round number for us to shoot for, and certainly does make a difference to the future of the college. And we have been talking about this now for about 5 years. And so it hasn't changed. It's the same every year when we run this analysis. And so we feel like we're at a point in time where we really are looking for some movement going forward, or we will probably need to start dipping into our fund balance at some point in time, or continuing to severely increase the tuition for our students. We'd like to be able to keep it at 2.5 or 3%. Are there any questions? We have some discussion. Yes.
I'm always good for questions.
I like
So what is the current fund balance is one question. And secondly, I've heard some discussion, but I haven't seen any actually happening in our committee, our Suny Adirondacks committee, about real proposals for increasing our share. Do you have proposals that you submitted to people on the county that we can see as a committee?
So let me provide some information about local share. Local share is currently split based on FTE. It's based on the number of students that each of you sends to Suny Adirondacks. That is an agreement that you made with one another. We simply execute it on your behalf. It is an agreement that would be needed to be changed by both counties. So we don't feel it's appropriate for us to be in the driver's seat about what that might look like going forward. We're certainly happy to participate in those discussions and would like to be included. But one of the things that has been identified over the last several years is possibly finding an alternative way to split the local share that is not FTE based. And there have been discussions about what that might be. Equalized assessed value was one. The two county administrators have worked together to identify a proposal of what that might look like. And so there have been some discussions about that, but this, is the appropriate place for that to continue. But again, we don't feel that Suny Adirondacks should be the one in the driver's seat for those conversations. We're happy to participate. We'd like to participate, but that really needs to be an agreement between the two counties. The fund balance, had to pull that out in front of me, to be told. The unreserved fund balance amount that we believe will be actual for the end of the existing year is about $4.8 million. It would represent about 17% of our operating budget. I will tell you that we're budgeting to use about 1.7 million of that to cover the gap that we have for the current year. However, we planned on that. That's what the HERF funds were for. They were to cover lost revenue experienced during a severe decline. Our enrollment has not fully bounced back to pre-pandemic levels. And so I think that number will get down closer to about 15% by the end of this year, which equals the Government Finance Officers Association recommendation for a minimal fund balance amount. It's about 2 months operating expenses.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
Was the number you gave us for the fund balance before or after the 1.7?
Before.
Or you're actually talking 3.1?
After yes, it'll be about 15% of our operating expenses for the year. Al?
Emery, the ed law defines the local share as not only the sponsor's contribution, but the amount that you get from the non-sponsor counties.
Yes.
Have you done, I'm sure you have, I would be surprised if you haven't. Have you calculated what our 15% will leverage you as a total local share? Will be bumping up closer to that 33%? Because 15 will leverage you more with the non-sponsor counties.
We have, I don't have that information with me today. I didn't bring my long-term calculation, but I'll talk to you about the current year because I know it off the top of my head. In the current year, we have about a $1.7 million deficit. If the local sponsor covered about 700,000 or 800,000 of that, the chargebacks would cover the rest. It is significant. The impact of the local share, the sponsor share piece on what we are able to charge to other counties is significant.
But it is possible that 15% could bump you up on the third. It was intended originally.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That was part of the goal. I mean, Eric and I went through many different iterations of this and it all came back to the same thing. It was kind of magical. You know? Yeah, it enabled us to accomplish so many things, including what our original goal was to really minimize any increases in tuition to our students.
So to answer what Claudia asked, it's our two former administrators that actually put this in motion. And we did meet with Ryan just before he left. And so it was anywhere from an 8-year to 12-year program that could get us to where we equaled the assessed values. But remember, they change every year, so you would have to look every year to see where they went. But there was a path. There was 2 or 3 different paths to get there under that scenario, and we discussed them. And that was the first time I had seen it all laid out in our county, and that was just to a few of us in the room. In fact, I was probably the only supervisor in the room. So I don't know. I guess I thought you guys may have heard more over that period of time. I don't know. And I tried to flush that out in our last meeting here, and we didn't get there. And then of course now Chris had already left, and Ryan is now left. So, but I think what Anne Marie says is exactly right. That's up to our counties to figure that out. That burden's on us, not on them, to see if we can get it.
I've heard some talk that was happening, but I haven't really been able to see or digest the proposals. The idea that we would be able to make this leap in 1 year doesn't.
No.
I didn't know if that was what was being proposed, and I don't really like the assessed value thing, because one of the reasons we just said it changes all the time. Can't we come up with a proposal that would give us stepwise increases in a way that we can all budget carefully going forward? So knowing that we have a different calculation and budget than you guys do.
Yeah, so we had that opportunity. So back to your economic plan or whatever you did. That basically showed that Warren County had far more of the increase than Washington County did. And I have not seen our breakdown, so I can't really tell you what that percentage is. But I was along the lines you were, because I thought it was the only way it could be sold, that we need a path that, even though we will be on different paths, it needed to be the same until once we reach the point, there should be a reconciliation and then we're the same again. And that's where I was trying to get. And that's why we met with Ryan, was to figure out how that was possible. There is a way. So if we can get together, the 2 counties, it's just a bad time to do in the middle of the budget. Right, Frank?
There was a plan put forth by Commissioner Moore at first. So plan, and it showed us getting there over, let's see, 5 years. So when the percentage of funding was 5 years, our county ended up at 64%. Washington County. I don't know how that paper in front of me, but I have my. It's basically 1.4%, 1.6% increase of our county here.
Okay. I'm having slight recollection of that conversation at committee. The 2 pages, yeah.
No, that's probably not. I thought it applied.
Was that, Frank, was that just you were saying a 1 point, whatever it was, increase per year,
Right.
just based on normal budgeting, not based on assessed value changes?
No, I think that's how it changed as it went on. Our percentage ended up being 64%. Currently, we're at 58, 57. So like in 23, 24, it's an additional 176,000. 24, 25 would be 360. 25, 26 would be 561,000. 26, 27, 771,000. 27, 28 would 994,000. Above what we would end up at 3,786,000.
So I don't know exactly, because I can't remember off the top of my head where the 1.3 or 1.4 came from. That wasn't the actual increase to your budget number. It's an increase in overall something. And I just don't recollect that. But it's different than just 1.4% of the line. It is different than that. So, but it's obtainable. You might not be able to do it in 5 years. Right. But the quickest I see we could get there was 8. And I thought if we took 12, it might be more palatable for your side, but I don't want to make a decision for your side. But there's a way to get there, and it really does make sense in a lot of ways for the future of the college, if both sides are interested in the future of the college.
I think this plan will put Washington County in a 2%.
Yeah. And if you guys wanted to go on a set rate, Warren County would be about a 5% increase, and it would take the 12 years. Like I said, at the same time, every year you would do a look at where we were assessments. Once we get to that point, then you would say, okay, we're here. Now let's reconcile it every year. We figure our percentage from there on, and you should be back to about the 2% cap level where we were. And that should be a significant increase to the college. It might, where we cross, it might actually be a little more than 5 million. I mean, it might take a little longer years, but you might hit a different number. But there was a point where we did have a chart where we had looked at it, and there was a point where they crossed. So there is the opportunity.
Yes.
So the question is, the $5 million is based on the 2023 budget, correct?
Yes, it is.
Did the calculations we've looked at, did it take into consideration the percentage increase of the college's budget over the next 5 or 8 years? The path is, because it's certainly not going to be $5 million in 8 years.
So I have seen many calculations, including the ones that Eric and I started with that we shared with the county administrators at the time, which was several years ago. And I've seen calculations from the Washington County side, several from the Warren County side, but they're scratch calculations. This isn't like a plan. This is like a, what would it take and is this even feasible? There was some discussion about a 5-year plan, assuming a 5.5% increase in total operating revenue to the college over the next 5 years and what it would take to get there. Keeping Washington County basically at their current 2% increase per year. So I think there are many different ways to try to get there. You know, I think Al probably has some ideas as well. And I think that's what we're really looking for, is a commitment to get there and to work on how will that happen.
And I would just add that in the plan that Marie and Eric have spent a good deal of time on, it's not just local share that we're looking for.
No.
Obviously, we're continuing to advocate for more state support, of course. Also, holding the college accountable to contain our costs, like all these things working together. So I want to make sure it's not that we're saying, oh, if the county just does all this, we don't have to do any other work. We're continuing to work with the state to try to figure out how to increase their share. In fact, the state share to community colleges is quite frankly very low, and has declined over time. And so we're continuing to meet community college presidents, Suny, advocating for increased state share. So I want to make sure that that's out there too. And that, you know, a modest increase in tuition is kind of a reasonable, you know, cost of doing business that we do as well. So it's, I think we call it kind of sharing the pain.
Yep.
You know, all of our different investors, including students, including the state, including the county, and including our non-sponsored support, all that they work together, you know, puts us in a little bit of a better place.
And that long-term financial plan that we put together in 2017, we have presented it at these committee meetings several times since then. It hasn't really changed, and it really is what helped us to drive certain things on the expense side as well, and on the other revenue side. So that need to go out there and secure grants to assist us. You know, the long-term financial plan made that clear. Self-funding our insurance to save money, that was a result of taking a look at what the impact of that would be on the long-term financial plan. Some of the personnel limitations and reductions we've made, same thing. So the college, increasing enrollment, that's a big one. So the college has been following that plan over this period of time, advocating to the state for additional state aid funds, and we've made movement. It's not just Suny Adirondacks, but Chris was president of the president's group just recently, and veering away from the FTE model to recognize a base level of aid for our colleges. But the one place that we really haven't seen that movement in the operating side is with our sponsor counties. So that's why we're here making a formal request to you today. It has been supported by our board of trustees. They did pass a resolution in August supporting this request that I included in the packet for you. And I think what we're looking for is a commitment to explore this together in whatever way works for you, whether that's your community college committees or your finance committees. But again, as we've said, there are many ways to get there. Yes.
So apparently the two people that are most involved in this are no longer around. Should we set up a joint committee with the two counties? Maybe a budget officer or the treasurers, whoever you select, and a member from ACC to sit down and iron these out, so we're presenting the same thing to the counties, give them sort of a deadline. I know no one's got anything else to do but work on this, but give them sort of a deadline to come up with some sort of recommendation so we can think it through.
Really your call.
Well, it's a good idea, but I think you want your two administrators involved, and do you have an administrator in place? I think you want to go forward with that, yeah. I just think that's where you're going to be at. But I think when we left our meeting with Ryan, our question was how do we hold the college accountable? It's like you said, as this money comes in, what makes us get there? And not saying you haven't done this in the past and stay within the limits of where we could go as the individual counties. But that's what we were trying to figure out was, okay, we do this and we do this, but if you expand your budget, we're still only 12%. And so it was trying to figure out how we could make that all work. And it's only by having all the people in the room to iron it out. And so I like the idea. I just think we need all our principal people in place before we go forward. But I guess that's where I'd be at.
I can respect that, but what if they can't find an administrator for 2 or 3 months or can't join for 2 or 3 months? Well, we've lost 2 or 3 months in the process. That's my concern.
We lost 12 years. And there's been after us for this.
I respect that, but I think if we can't get a core group to at least sit down and talk about it, and then the administrators come and formulate a plan, so we're just not spinning our wheels for another 12 years.
I guess my concern on that was the two people that were behind it are gone, and now you're going to start with one not here. It's a little tough. situation to let anyone get away with it. But that's up to you guys if you want to go forward. We're ready to go, but I think we want to get the budgets passed first, in all honesty. This is a tough time of year to try to tackle something new. If we want to tackle this in December, I'm all for it.
First of all, the presentation is the level of the scope, the level of detail, professionalism, categorization, costs. You know, to me, I mean, you have to come to grips with this is a fundamental question of, you know, how do we take the college from where it is to where it wants to go? I assume where we want it to go.
Where it needs to go, maybe.
But that's even better, where it needs to go. Now, part of financing is based on, well, you said that is, cost, right? And that is one approach. But what happens when one of the partners is has more financial capacity than the other partner? Can we get where we need to go with the existing financial formula? Is it going to place just too great a financial burden on one partner and make it politically difficult, if not impossible, to achieve? Not that it's going to be all that easy on the other partner either. It just seems to me that that's the question that we need to be moving around in our heads. Because we can always argue about or debate or discuss the equities and inequities, different types of approaches. And, you know, but if the goal here, we share a common goal, what gets us there? What gets us there? But I think fundamentally, we're right now I think we have a problem. Not when it was fall, it's just now we've reached a point in time where, you know, how do we go? How do we take from here and how do we go here? That's the question. And if you share that, then maybe we can get to a good place. And if you don't share that, then, you know, then we continue as we have. And people had that in that way. That's kind of how I see this. And just one other thing to keep in mind when you look at the numbers that were put out there today, and you look at what our contribution is, and then you look at the total operating and capital addition and addition to college. This is, I mean, and we talk about leverage, public leverage is going on here, at least based on my analysis, a lot of leverage, and it's benefited greatly our residents. Very serious question. Approach in a serious way. There needs to be a lot of explanation. Cost Warren County, $500,000 more in the end than proportion of what it is today. I mean, that's where we're going. that's where we're going. If it's 300,000, it's 300. If it's $1 million, that's $1 million. That's where we're going. But don't forget why we're going, why we're thinking about it. I think it's important reason. I think
No, that was very good because it's our future of the region is why we're even here to start with. And what do we want that future to be? So when you just come out and say, hey, I need $5 million, that makes it insurmountable. But if we do it methodically and have a plan where it's seismic, you know, you can have that in an area where it's not insurmountable.
And it's not an additional $5 million.
Right, no.
It's an additional like
right.
million and
Unless you
small
really want
change.
to.
It's just.
Just to be clear.
Yeah, let's keep it.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Just want to be clear.
Throw a big nugget out there, it makes it insurmountable, nobody's interested.
Right, it's not insurmountable, but it is serious and it should be taken into consideration carefully. There are going to be people asking questions and I don't think that it should be done in a room where supervisors aren't participating. I do think that we can start moving forward. I mean, I'm looking at Frank and Tammy is here. Craig can work on it, start getting things together to bring to a committee to have further discussion about it. I think it's gonna take some months, even if we start now with some discussions. And I like your point about the accountability to the college about their budgeting and, you know, we agreed to increase and then all of a sudden their budget explodes. But we still have the budgeting
Right.
process every year, so I'm not too worried about that. One thing I would like to mention, then I'll be quiet, is a commitment from the college that if we do this, the students' contribution will come down. I mean, to me, that's one of the important reasons for doing this.
I think that, I'm not sure it can come down because of the price of everything, but you might keep it from increasing or increasing it rapidly. I think the whole idea from our last meeting, I don't remember if you were here when we met. The whole idea is to keep their tuition under what the Pell will pay. And at the rate we're going, that was gonna not happen real quickly. So
We should have like, they can provide us, I'm sure, an analysis of that.
We
Yeah.
can. It's in our long-term financial plan. We would certainly want to present that again to begin these conversations because it answers a lot of what's being discussed here. What it showed was, you know, without this, we're looking at 5+% tuition increases annually for our students to balance our budget. With it, we could keep it at 3% or below. And what you'll see change is that total percentage of revenue that comes from students, as your share increases, that will decline. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking to keep the burden to your local residents as reasonable as possible. We know that the cost of attendance is a factor on whether or not they attend. And we have been talking about this for 5 years now already. So it has already gone 5 years down the path of not being addressed in the way that we would hope. So we're just keep adding on to that cumulatively every year that we move forward. So we were asked to bring it at this time because of your budget season, and you are aware that ours is different than yours. And so, at a minimum, I think we would be looking for an increased commitment for our budget next year, which I believe impacts the budget that you're passing right now.
So Emery, if you look at all of us here, looking at our county budgets and our town budgets, I think we've got some shocks based on inflation costs, fuel costs, and other costs. You're looking at the same thing also.
We are.
And I think that you made a good point. Your budget process starts differently than ours. And I can respect that we're all busy doing our own budgets, but I really think we need to start looking at this now so we can sync with your budget so you can do better planning with your budget process.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Now, I'll say what I've said many times to many people over the years. We're 80% personnel and benefits. So when the state holds your revenue flat and we get 2% from our 2% increase from our sponsors, the only place left to go is to increase students. We've tried to tamper that with grants. Chris very actively and successfully goes after and obtains grants. We've done an excellent job with that, and we will continue to do so. But we are at what I consider to be a critical point, which is why we are here formally asking this request today to consider this.
But we wouldn't be increasing that in the budget we're working on right now. This would be in our next year's budget at the county level, right?
My understanding was that it was right now, which is why we were asked to bring it to this meeting.
That was
Your budget
not the
cycle is
way it was
different than
presented to
ours.
us. But that's okay.
We're talking about a real world, like, right, if it can be next year, that would be great, like, if we can just get a plan that people feel comfortable with, it gives us a plan, you know, right now, it's still just a stab in the
No,
dark.
there's no way it can
This
happen.
would be
But
for
what we
24
can do,
budget.
It'll be for the 24 budget.
Their 23, 24
It's
fiscal
third,
year.
right.
Yeah,
It's
right.
not for, it's not for
It's
This is what we
three.
start preparing. this
Yes.
fall, you know, at the end of this fall, but I think we're on,
I think we are saying the same thing.
The county's 24 budget.
And the other thing that we need to remember is our workforce is what we're trying to conquer, the development of a workforce. That's why both sides are here and you're here. And so that's the result we're after, because we're losing that workforce and we need it back. I think that's the goal, more than the money, more than the college. It's the citizens we represent.
My experience on the students is that, you know, what you've got to break is that you don't do it when times are relatively good, you can't do it when times are bad.
That's
And so
absolutely.
they don't do it. And so, you know, that's, you know, that always is the goal, right? That's always the, you know, that's the challenge. Maybe it's not going to be now, but I mean, that's what has to be. You know, we are going into, we don't know what kind of economic period going forward, inflation, recession.
So more reason we need to educate our kids.
And candidly, I mean, these are not huge numbers, right? I mean, this can be done. We are, everyone in this room knows this can be done. How it's done, over what period of time, when it begins. And then, if we can, do we need to change the formula? I'm difficult with signing that. That's where we
We'll get together and talk about it.
Right.
Okay, so.
So one of the things I think would be helpful to the counties, there's a 2007 settlement agreement on how the funds are allocated. It would be interesting to look at the timeline if we're going to change methodologies. Because I think, I'm looking at my crystal ball, I don't think the $5 million is going to be the long conversation. I think the long conversation is going to be how that $5 million is split. I think that most of the people, if not all the people in this room, feel the $5 million is an achievable and an appropriate ask. I think how we get there, to Supervisor Conover's comments, that's going to, the longer discussion is going to be, is it enrollment? Is it assessed value? Is it like we do our sales tax where it's 50% enrollment, 50% assessed valuation? There's methodologies that I think are going to take longer to agree on than the 5 million will. So it'll be interesting to see what the timeline looks like that you need, because I think we vote on your budget in July, right? When the boards vote on your budget.
Yeah.
So I think if we're going to have a change in methodology, an important thing for the boards would be, what's the timeline if you're going to change methodologies to make sure that you have what you need for your budget presentation. Just because we vote in July, you need that information
That's
in March, you know? So the counties kind of have to have a little bit of a timeline from you on if you're going to change methodologies for the 23-24 year, when you kind of need to know, we kind of need to back into, if we're going to set up some kind of bi-county working group, we got to kind of need to back into a timeline.
Maybe for today, we asked our chairs to discuss this in the process, an initial process, and that be, you know, saying we're married to an initial process of we existing committees, special committees, whatever.
Yes,
Just one question I was going to ask, just my own information. Do you identify the person's current mailing address when you determine where they're from?
I'm sorry.
Well, for enrollment, as far as enrollment, whether they're a Washington County or Warren County resident.
Each
You're looking
student,
at their current mailing address.
each student provides a certificate of residence issued to them by their county of residence. Each county controls the certificate of residency issuance process, which generally requires proof of residency in the form of mail, high school transcripts, those types of things.
Okay, so I'm just a little confused. If a person graduates from Hudson Falls High School or Hartford High School, but they work at Glens Falls Hospital and they have an apartment that they share in the city of Glens Falls, where are they from as far as the college is concerned?
Warren County.
Or,
There's
yeah,
permanent residences.
The residents.
Whatever the
Yeah.
residence.
I'm going to weigh in on this. From my perspective, Chairman, from my perspective, Washington County, I don't care who coordinates and works with. We designate our county administrator to do this. It's Warren County's responsibilities if we want to head up and do that. Okay, it doesn't. We can't be sitting here naming it. We want to wait for their county administrator to do it. Well, no, that's true. Okay, so I think that, we don't need to hold the process up if they're ready to go along that way, because we're already ready to be fully engaged. We've already started that process. It's a better view from our side of Washington County, their county administrators. So I don't think it should be tempted if you guys are ready to make a decision as to how you want to move along with it. That, we won't hold anybody hostage here to say that it's got to be county administrator. Whoever you choose to do that.
I just can't.
So I think, yeah, I think from our perspective, this is what we wanted to present today, and then, good conversation can occur going forward, and whatever role we want us to play in terms of information, participation, we would take those things.
So just a question. We know you present your budget to us in July. When would you need your budget process to work through all the mechanics of what you're doing, some sort of commitment from both counties that we're going to do the split this way, we're going to increase, and this is the way we're going to increase it? When's that going to be your budget process? Not when you present it to us.
Well,
Chris and I are on the same page here. I was gonna say December or January.
I said February.
I said May, because I don't think the county's.
Well, by the time the state passes their budget, that is literally the last piece that we confirm in April. For us to be able to put the budget together to present to our board of trustees, it also impacts our tuition and fee schedule. So if we don't receive this commitment from you, our tuition will be one thing most likely, and if we do, it will most likely be something else. Our tuition and fee schedule goes in front of our board of trustees in April, beginning of April.
It would be super helpful if we could have it in January, but I can do it up until, probably April, whenever the state budget comes through.
We should work on their time frame. This is something going on for 12 years. Let's get this commitment done and done. Just pay attention to it.
I'll make a motion. You want a motion to adjourn, Chris?
Thank you all.
I need a motion from.
We're not motioning. We have watching
Right.
Right.